And today's video is all about perspective. Another one of those lovely tools that you can tuck into your toolbox. It's one of the P's that I preach in the first video of the series of The World Behind Your Eyes. And perspective is the most important one to start with, in my opinion. Because if we learn to change the perspective on how we see things, we then start taking the information in differently. So let me just give you an example. If I'm a very disempowered individual and I don't have strength in myself, I'm not, I don't even have the power to order my own dinner. I let someone else choose off the menu for me. I'm one of those disempowered people. I won't make any choices just out of fear that it won't be what everybody else wants. That kind of disempowerment. If I'm one of those types of people, and I recognize that in myself, I'm going to take in any information from any person. I'm going to call them messengers, because people really are messengers to each other in their lives. You're dropping bits of useful information. If you're not empowered, if you're not feeling strong in yourself, you'll end up taking all those bits of advice where you could have learned and moved on. You'll take it as criticism. And that's a disempowering thing to do for yourself. And then you'll get stuck on it. And it might take you 30 years to get over, someone doing that to you. So perspective really is everything. And it was one of those tools I realized even before I stepped into my own power, before I really jumped down this road of figuring out who I was and what I was doing here in this life. And I realized that perspective was everything. And it wasn't just about, looking through life as the glass half full rather than half empty, that it was so much bigger than that. And so I want to share a few of those little grains of truth that worked for me with you today. So let's take the first thing on the list in front of you. Let's take the word discomfort and let's turn that into growth. Let's break that down by looking at the next situation that comes into your energy field that makes you feel uncomfortable. That it's actually the universe guiding you through your fears into growing a step further in the right direction. And if you pay attention to these, you'll start to look at your own life very differently in a really short period of time. You might just do it on the spot. Problems that show up in our life then become challenges. Okay? It's not a problem that this didn't happen. It's offering me a challenge. Use my critical thinking. Work myself through it. Have that ability to have the strength in myself to face those challenges. Then it's not a disempowering thing. Then it's not a problem of mine. It's a challenge. It's a challenge. And I'm going to work through it. Maybe I don't write nicely. Maybe I have really poor penmanship. And I look on that as a problem in life. But maybe after today, I'll go back and reevaluate that and go, you know what? It's one of my challenges. I got to work on that skill. And I look at it differently. And it changes everything. The moment you change your perspective on even one thing, it's like the snowball, right? It's the snowflake that starts it and it catches on to a few more. And before you know it, this ball is rolling on its own. Rejections then become redirection. If you now can look back on the history of your life and look at all those times where you physically felt rejected, whether from a family member, or maybe you had a crush on somebody and they never reciprocated that same feeling and you felt that feeling of rejection. Well, if you start to look back, that it was a redirection, that the universe was guiding you with its hand, the only way it can, to get you back on your path. So it's not a rejection. Nobody was rejecting you. It was the force larger than all of us that was trying to direct you back onto the right path. It's a redirection, not a rejection. Triggers, and I mean all triggers, reveal wounds. And let me tell you, you want to figure out where your wounds are? Let someone close to you pull your strings, push your buttons. They know your triggers the best. This is also how you know how well you're doing on this path of healing and discovering yourself and who you are, is the things that would normally trigger you, they start to become less of a trigger. Because at the end of the day, you start to realize that this is the way I realize where my wounds lie. Someone can trigger me by saying this word over here because it makes me think of this experience, and boom, off I go. Now I'm going, okay, that's because of that experience. I've got some work to do here. I need to learn to let go of this because this is taking energy out of my biology. It's making me sick. Darkness always reveals light. Always. And let me give you an analogy on this one. For those of you that drive, and those of you that drive at night, you know very well that the only way that you can get through the darkness is with your headlights on. And your headlights can't see the end of your journey, but they can allow you to see so many feet ahead of you. And little by little, you get to where you're going. I hope that helps solidify that in your mind. That what you consider your failures in life are lessons. So consider what you think as your biggest failures. Now go back and look on them as lessons. What was there for you to learn? And if you haven't figured out the lesson yet, then go and start there. Because that's where the healing needs to start for you. Fears are your biggest teachers. Nothing will empower you more in life than pushing through a fear. And it doesn't matter if it's a little one or it's something that you consider big. They all bring power back to your physical form. They empower you. The moment you say, okay, I'm going to walk across that bridge, I'm going to do it, and I'm not going to be afraid, you feel great when you get to the other side. And that's why it's so important to understand what your fears are. Give them the name, go back to that video on unfinished business, and put a name to your fears. And the last, but certainly not the least, pain to power. I've been asked this one over and over again by students that have come through my classes. And it's the one thing that we can talk about for hours after classes. If you go back into your history, and you all know that moment in time when that thing or that instance happened to you, that you're still holding on to the pain with. And you know it. You don't need to share that with anybody but your own self. If you can go back into that pain and find where your power lies there is a fear at the base of it. And discovering that in that biggest painful moment in your life, that it taught you maybe this lesson over here. And then you find value in that pain. And then it energetically allows you to sever that connection so it doesn't hurt anymore, because you discovered something in there for you. And your lessons only need to be discovered by you. And let me say this again and again and again. I'm not trying to diminish anybody's trauma from their history. In fact, some traumas are so huge, you can't get through them in a lifetime. I understand that. But this simple guided meditation course that I'm offering to you through my website will give you a lens of perception into maybe allowing yourself to just let a little bit of it go, to find a little bit of peace in your own life and realize that forgiveness isn't something you do to let someone else off the hook for hurting you. Forgiveness, in fact, is a very selfish act. It's something you do for yourself so you don't have to continue suffering anymore. So thank you for joining me today. Add that tool of perspective to your toolbox. And for further information, check out my website in the description below and like, share, and subscribe.